Hello, welcome back to the channel and welcome to my review of the Latitude 64 Royal Grand Grace. Grace is an 11-speed distance driver from the Royal line from Latitude 64. The plastic on this particular disc is called Grand, and it's basically like a really high quality, top level version of the Gold line plastic from Latitude 64. Big thank you to Dynamic Discs for not only sending me these to test and review, but also for their patience. Them, along with all of my sponsors, they've all been really patient, allowed me to work my way through all this plastic, and it takes quite a while to do so. And some of the stuff, like these, have been in the inventory for far too long now. But I do have the testing done on these. We have some flight footage. We're going to take a look at them side by side with other discs in similar speed ranges, all that and more. So stay tuned and check the link in the description to go look at these on Dynamic Discs' website. Royal Grand Grace, 11, 6, -1, and 2 are the flight numbers on this disc, and I would say based on our testing, those are pretty much spot on. I don't have any real complaints with those at all. No arguments here. This one is 166 grams, which you probably won't be able to see. Maybe, oh, there you can kind of see. 169 rather. So a little bit lighter weight on this blue one. This one here is, yes, 173, so basically max weight on this dyed one here. This one started out this nice kind of cotton candy pink, but I put this dye job on top of it. I was actually quite surprised at how the yellow popped on this thing. I didn't expect it to really take yellow from the pink, but anyway. This one, being a few grams heavier, is a little bit more stable. This blue one definitely had a little bit more flip to it, probably flew a little bit farther for us on average as well. So the Grace, again, 11-speed driver, so it doesn't have quite the super wide rim of a 12, 13-plus speed disc, and that's a good thing in my opinion. I think a lot of players would benefit from stepping it down just a little bit to an 11 or maybe even 9-speed discs as your main distance thrower when you don't have a lot of arm speed. A lot of the players will actually get better, longer flights out of a slower disc. They don't have to worry about the speed taking it off the line quite as much. It's also easier to get it up to speed. So these definitely flew pretty close to the flight numbers in our testing. Again, I have no arguments with those. Let's take another look at this one. This one took a little bit of damage during testing, so it's not like any kind of amazing durability level on this thing, but it did spike down onto a sidewalk, I guess. Andy threw it on a forehand and downhill, and it just like landed right on an asphalt sidewalk. So just about any disc is going to take some damage from that. But here's one more look at the dye guy. Let's get it out of the way and take a closer look at this blue one, since this one is in pretty pristine shape, I would say. And there you get a decent idea of the wing shape on this thing. So those flight numbers, you might have noticed, are very similar to like a destroyer, but a little bit slower, a little bit less fade. The Wraith, which is a very, easily the most popular 11-speed disc of all time, is actually 11.5 -1.3, which is exactly the same as the Discraft Surge. This is the Tour Series Surge that Chanimal helped us review here on the channel. You can go check out that video if you're interested in more about the Surge, but there it is next to the Royal Grace. I would say the Surge is a little bit deeper and maybe doesn't have quite as much rim width to it. Just a hair different, but they are definitely quite similar in terms of stability and flight and stuff. Yeah, you can see the, hopefully you can see, I think the Grace is a bit shallower, bit more rim width. The Surge has a little bit more depth to it. Gorgeous disc there. And also, we have the Lone Star Discs Curl. This one is the same flight numbers as the Grace, but the glide is still a 5, so they didn't bump the glide up to a 6. This Curl has a big pop-top dome on it, as does the other version that I tested. We had a couple of these that we'll be reviewing relatively soon as well. 2 of them are really domey, the glow one not so much. But other than that, you can see, once again, not hugely dissimilar in terms of the actual shape and design. Now, of course, there's always perspective issues when I'm doing this, so bear with me. It's always tough to get it really well lined up, but manufacturing on the Royal stuff is truly impeccable. I mean, the thing just feels incredible. I was extremely impressed when these first showed up. Just absolutely zero flashing, incredible molding, super clean. No concerns whatsoever in terms of any kind of hot spots or flashing of any kind on these discs. Just ultra clean, ultra smooth, Super high quality. They're beautiful. They take dye quite well, as you saw on that one that I dyed. I don't want to grab it again, but the grip is also quite nice. It's a little bit more shiny, kind of a glossier grip to it than some of the standard gold line or fusion that you might run into. So again, it just seems like a kind of premium, top quality version of what they're already doing at Latitude 64, and it's easily some of the nicest plastic on the market. These are some of the nicest quality discs you can find. So, in terms of flight, I would say that the Grace has a little bit more glide than the Surge did during my testing, but not a huge difference. They're all quite similar between these. I would say the Grace is a little bit more inherently straight flying, a little bit more glide than a Star Fresh max weight Star Wraith like the one that we tested here on the channel. That one was a little bit more stable to start out with than these Graces were. And I would say the Lone Star Curl, just having this big pop top dome, caught a lot of air and it really liked to fly, so it was getting out there about as far. Even though it has a 5 for glide, I would say they weren't hugely different. So as we're taking a look at the flight footage here, keep in mind that in this particular field session, the wind was kind of moving right to left, so stuff that got turned over too much was getting pushed down on the top of the flight plate, and then stuff that got too much hyzer too early in the flight was really sweeping out at the end of the flight. So it's giving you a little bit of kind of different reads and different looks than it might on a perfectly calm day. Other than that, you're going to see these fly really nice on a slight hyzer. They'll flip up a little bit and sweep out on that nice hyzer finish and kind of smooth to the left. Again, the wind kind of aiding it, but they definitely seem to do that anyway. Definitely a disc that can fly quite stable. Like, it's not like a flippy disc, I wouldn't say, for my arm speed, for sure. For any of us, we didn't have any issue with it accidentally flipping at all. If anything, they were hyzering out a little bit more with that wind than we might have expected them to. But you'll see as it goes from me to Andy to James, they still fly basically the same, but mine just aren't going quite as far, and they're fading out a little bit earlier. Same for Andy. His will go a little bit farther, but they fade out a little bit earlier than James. And other than that, they're holding similar shapes, just kind of at different distance ranges, which is great news. And again, when we're talking about 11-speed discs, I think they're a really great range for average players with average arm speeds to have a throwable disc that is capable of getting decent distance, or excellent distance in this case, but it's not quite as difficult to control. It's a little easier to keep it on the line than something that's 12 or 13 speed. You know, comparing these Graces to like a Royal Rive, the Orbit Rive, I can pretty much guarantee you any regular player is going to throw a Grace farther on more kind of normal golf lines than those Rives when they're fresh. They're really beefy. Really hard to get them to get to flat, really hard to get them to ride over at all. These are much more throwable and controllable, and you might actually be throwing them farther, especially if you can't get a Rive or, you know, a Destroyer or whatever up to speed quite as much as it needs to. It's going to hyzer out, and you'd be better off throwing something that's a little bit slower and a little bit easier to control. I know that's what Chandler had told us about his Surge, is that when he doesn't trust a force or a nuke, and he just wants to make sure he can throw something that he can control and keep it on the line as long as possible, that's when he's going to the Surge. And I think that's really smart. I think a lot of players can benefit from that type of thought process. And once again, if you have a lower arm speed, you'll probably end up getting a little bit more distance because you're able to keep these on a straighter line for a longer period of time, and or get them to kind of flex over a little bit and stretch out some extra distance. Grace, all in all, flies about true to the flight numbers based on our testing, and that is my review on the Royal Grand Grace. Once again, thank you to Dynamic Discs for their continued support, sending me all of this awesome plastic to test, show off, evaluate, and just been great relationship working with them, and I look forward to continuing to do so. They just sent us some more stuff recently, so keep an eye out for videos coming from me with more Trilogy plastic in the near future. I also want to take a moment to thank all of my sponsors for sending me stuff to test and to show off here on the channel. It makes it possible for me to continue to do what I do. We're creeping up on 300 disc reviews, and I really appreciate everyone not only sending the plastic, but having a lot of patience and just kind of letting me work my way through it at my own pace, and I'm happy to be a little bit more back on track. Creeping up on 300 disc reviews here on the channel, creeping up on 15,000 subscribers. I love and appreciate you all. Shout out to the Disc Golf Nerd Patreon support team. I'll talk to you very soon. Cheers.